Chelsea have fired their head coach Liam Rosenior after less than 4 months with the club. The Blues lost 3-0 to Brighton on Wednesday, marking their 5th straight loss in the Premier League. Chelsea, they're currently in 7th place in the table, 7 points outside the final places of the Champions League. Assistant coach Callum McFarlane has been appointed as the interim head coach for the rest of the season. He'll take charge for his first match on Sunday when Chelsea face Leeds United in the FA Cup semi-finals at Wembley Stadium. Joining us now, Mike Grella and Nigel Reo-Coker to discuss. Nigel, I'll start with you here. Are you surprised, first of all, with the timing of Liam Rosenior being fired? Obviously, it's been an awful run in the Premier League, their worst run in the Premier League, in fact, in 114 years, if you can believe it. What's your reaction?
No, I'm not surprised, Poppy, if I'm honest. We know what football is. Football is a results business. And the one thing for me that hasn't surprised me is the manner in which this new Chelsea ownership group have been working this football club and the direction that they believe the club is going to go in. Yes, they are probably masters when it comes to the finances of it and rewriting the books in how to get around financial side of football. When it comes to the game itself and understanding how football works and football clubs and direction of travel, I'm not surprised that they sacked Liam.
Well, what do you think?
To be fair, you did say before he got the job, you said you don't think he was the right guy for the job, even though he was your boy. But there's a two-headed thing here, right? There's the ownership that we need to talk about at Chelsea. That obviously there's been this manager merry-go-round has been very unrealistic of what their expectations are to get out of this young group. And then there's what Liam Rosenior did in his job. You know, 1 win in the last 8. In 6 of those games, he doesn't score a goal. Just let's start with Liam. Do you think he did enough to keep the job, or do you think the sacking was justified in that way, without talking about ownership?
No, he didn't do enough. He knows he's in the results business. Liam got into management and understood football. You know, like I said, Liam and I played together from our younger days in England under 21s. We knew each other very well. He knows the business. He got into it. He got into management because he wanted to. It's not an easy job description to go into football management. But he knows the bottom line is it's a results business. And this is the beauty of football. But at the same time, you're a club like Chelsea. They've got high expectations. Yes, they might be living on the past ownership group in what they did and how they went about stuff to, you know, win Premier League titles, win Champions League. The fans have that same appetite for Chelsea Football Club to be successful. It was always going to be a very demanding job in the sense of every bit of the results that he got will be analysed. Everything that he did will be analysed to another level. This is what comes with being at a club that's in the 1%. Pressure is there daily, day in, day out. Every result, every substitution, every formation you make, you will be analysed. So I'm not surprised that he lost his job, Grella, because if you look at the results, he knows himself it hasn't been good enough.
Yeah, Nigel, I just felt like they gave him a 5.5-year deal. They wanted to give him a runway, I feel like. I felt like in that way they were being very honest with their approach in terms of giving him a long-term deal. But the results of the last 8 games alone, I mean, you could look at the body of work, but also the last 8 games, some of the stuff he did in the media and said in the media, I think for me, he really derailed himself in a lot of ways. And I know ownership there is not an easy ownership to get along with, but I feel like, you know, at the last 8 games, it was like you had to get rid of him regardless of how much you thought he was going to be good in the future.
Well, what's interesting as well is when you look at his timeline, you can say, Nigel, you know, he got bought in mid-season, obviously after Enzo Maresca was sacked. He hasn't had a full transfer window. He hasn't had this, he hasn't had that. But the reality is Chelsea were sliding so far down the table recently. Do you think that this is also a result of the senior players on Chelsea saying that they are not bought into this Liam Rosenior project anymore? How much of a voice do you think that they have in this situation?
Well, that just goes to both of your points that you guys have made. Great points there. I'm talking about, again, you got to go to ownership. There's nothing else you can go to but the ownership group. You look at what's happened recently. You look at the Enzo Fernandez situation, and when Liam came to defend himself and talk about that situation, that he was in line with the ownership and they felt that was the right thing to do to suspend him for 2 games, where that's one of your most influential players. That's the decision that they came with. For me, Poppy, the ownership group of Chelsea right now has no idea in what direction they want to go in, because they say one thing and they do completely the opposite. If you believe in Liam Rosenior, if you believed in him, that you brought him in, you've got to give him to the end of the season. But this just goes to show again the real lack of direction and understanding where they want to go. And just to add on top of that, let's look again at the players in the dressing room. Cucurella, he came out and gave a scathing rant or interview about the football club. Wasn't really mentioning too much about Liam Rosenior, but did mention about how they got rid of Maresca, the old manager. Every player that's had a little rant from Chelsea Football Club, from within that dressing room, hasn't said too much about Liam. It's been about the ownership. So that just goes to show how much of a chaotic football club it is, because now you've got players who play week in, week out for your own football club who have questioned your blueprint, your direction that you want to go in, talking about the lack of experienced players that you need, which is what things that myself, Grella, and other ex-pundits and people know the game of football have said the same thing of what Chelsea are lacking. But your blueprint and your direction in which way you want to go in is being criticised by players that are playing in your dressing room right now. And also, it's doing the rounds on social media, and it's out there that Cucurella's barber leaked out the starting lineup before the Brighton game of what players would be available and not available. How can you as a manager, or any manager, manage in these circumstances when some of your senior players are acting like 12, 13 years old and lacking the professionalism and understanding the business, the industry they're in, and also the football club that they're representing?
For me, this seemed like the writing was on the wall, and I was joking around earlier, but you said it. You said it's not the right guy for the job. It could have been timing. It could be profile. It could be character. It could be personality. It could be so many things. But you said yourself he's not the right guy for the job.
No, but this is it. Grella, I just want to stop you there because you're right in that point. So I just want to jump on that. The reason why I said it's not the right timing for the job is, again, this is about the lack of direction, understanding the game of football. If any of us work for a company, let's just use, for instance, one of the big companies in the world, and you're in part of that company and the CEO leaves and they ask one of you to become the next CEO, you're not going to say no. And this is part of the multi-club ownership. He was owned by Chelsea at Strasbourg. He's not going to turn down the opportunity to become Chelsea manager. And if that was you or Poppy in that same situation, you probably wouldn't. But again, with better direction and better people around this ownership group, they should say, right, Liam's doing great there, probably a manager for the future. Let's leave him at Strasbourg. Let's see if he can get Strasbourg in Champions League football in Liga and continue to grow and develop as a manager. Let's go and get someone else in this role and keep him within the family where we can keep an eye on him and keep developing him as a manager. This goes to the lack of direction and understanding that's around Chelsea Football Club about the footballing world and how it works. Because again, I think they failed to realise how much under the microscope any manager, any coach that goes to Chelsea is going to be under. Liam was not naive to that, but then obviously that they've said that this will be a long-term project. But I think for me, the right thing would have been keep him in-house, let him continue to develop. Let's see how he gets Strasbourg to Champions League football Liga.
Having said all that, Nige, do you think that anything that Liam could have done differently would have changed, you know, the outcome? Obviously, hindsight's easy, but one of the criticisms from the fans was that a lot of his behaviour on the sideline was performative and the way that he spoke to the media. Would he have regretted any way that he led Chelsea, do you think?
Oh, I think this is the thing. I think a lot of people say it's performative. They paid a lot more attention to his personality than they did to his coaching aspect and what he could do as a coach, as a manager. That was him being true to himself. One thing that Grella would probably know as well is managers and coaches, people that we know have gone into that industry, have always said the one regret that they had is they wish that they'd have done it their way. As long as Liam can walk away from this and knowing that he was true to himself and did it his way and wasn't influenced by other people, that's it. But the same day, Poppy, it's a results business. The results he got weren't good enough to keep him in the job right now with what Chelsea are trying to achieve and do. And you talk about the financial gains or the financial losses for the football club if they don't make Champions League. So they had to make a decision, and obviously he wasn't getting the results, and that was the only way they could go.
Yeah, but we all knew, and a lot of people knew. Chelsea fans knew. You knew. Back to what I was saying before. You knew. I knew. Chelsea fans knew he was not going to be the guy for the job. Too young, not the right timing, whatever it may be. And now, only 4 months later, he's been sacked, right? My question was, and maybe I'll even answer it a little bit too, is how can an ownership group with this much money, with this many people around them, with this much ability, with the squad that they have, in the positions that they have, not see this? This was a clear for me. And every time they continue to make the wrong decision, 4 months later, they're going to have to reroute. They're going to have to retry. They're going to have to reinvent. It's expensive. It's silly. It actually sets you backwards because every manager is going to come in. He's going to want his own set of players. So how is it possible that at the highest level of football, a club like Chelsea with the history it has, they can make these sort of, to me, this looks like a juvenile mistake?
It's just because they don't have footballing people helping them with these decisions, Grella. I think that's the best way to put it. Someone to actually challenge their thought process to say, no, this is the wrong direction. It's just that simple. It's not complicated. We could try and reconstruct it in any way we want, but that just shows you that the lack of direction. The plan to build a team for 7 years, for the future, to build one of the biggest or strongest teams in world football, that is a great idea, and it will always be an idea, because what they don't understand is people to tell them, as big as Chelsea Football Club is, it's not bigger than Barcelona, it's not bigger than Real Madrid, it's not bigger than Manchester United. So as much as these players might say, yes, if they're playing well and Chelsea's not in Champions League football, not winning Premier League titles, these players will want to jump ship. That is the football mindset. So if these players are playing well and a Barcelona or Real Madrid come in for them, they're going to want to go. They're not going to say, I want to be part of Chelsea of a 7-year plan. Those are type of things that these owners have to understand the reality of what they're dealing with. You look at what Enzo Fernandez said. You look at what Cucurella said recently. And then again, this selling players for profit, building for the future. Grella, you tell me what Chelsea player now, any of the top clubs will go and pay the same amount of money as Chelsea paid for these players to move them on? Or would they not buy them for less?
They buy them for less, for sure.
Do the players have too much power at Chelsea, do you think?
I don't think the players have too much power. I just think that the players are getting frustrated with the ownership. And again, if you just look at what they've said, they've attacked more so the ownership and the direction of the club than anything else. These players want to win, and they want to win now. They know that they're lacking experience. They've come and said it. Same things that ex-players, ex-pundits have said again and again. Finally, a player came and said it out, and that's just the reality. But again, it's the lack of understanding the beauty and the beast of this football business and this industry. So I wouldn't say it's power, Poppy. I just think it's frustration that's come out. But it also definitely will put a spotlight on this ownership group. And if you look at different ownerships, you look at your beloved Nottingham Forest, Maresca. He's an owner who's put money into the football club, made decisions, stuck by his decisions, and gone and had to make difficult decisions again if he had to. But he understands the building of football and success and understanding the balance and wants to win now. That's an ownership group where, okay, not the easiest person to get along with, but you at least understand the direction of where he wants to take this football club. I think for me, Chelsea is just in complete disarray, and they're just in denial of not knowing where they want to go. It's a great plan, it's a great idea, but it will never bear fruit.
Well, now it does set them back to square one again. We've got a viewer comment on YouTube here. Let's have a look at what it said. They should have kept Maresca. I mean, Maresca had his own issues with the ownership group. Aside from the results, right, Grella, is this just an easy answer for Chelsea fans to say at this point?
I mean, but there's another obvious one for me. Maresca's a top-quality manager. Whether you like him or not, he's a top-quality manager. You win the FIFA Club World Cup with him. You show progress with him. He's a young group. He had his demands. He had his things that he wanted out of the group. But then he came out in December, if I'm not mistaken, and said that he just had the worst meeting he's ever had in his life at the football club. And then after that, he sort of kind of threw in the towel. Results dipped, and then that was never going to work out in the first place. So that was also, for me, on ownership. That's the obvious one, that they should have kept a manager like Maresca. But to go back to what Nigel's saying is, if you don't know what direction you want to go in, how do you know who you want? How do you know who's good? How do you know who's not good? It requires trust. It requires a real plan. And I think the ownership doesn't have that right now. They think that they can just pay their way out of it, and it's not going to happen. I don't see it.
Here's what the fans think in a poll that said, should they have kept Liam Rosenior, or the right decision, to be fired? 77% say yes, 23% say no. I mean, obviously the fans are frustrated, right? You can see that. You can see from the reaction. Here's also a list of all the managers that we've seen under Todd Bowley. Where do they go, I suppose, Nige, from here? If you're in the Chelsea board now, are you thinking, let's bring in back a Frank Lampard, let's try and get Cesc Fabregas? Because they've tried a lot of different managers at this point, haven't they?
They have, Poppy, but there'll be no top manager who will take this job unless they get full control and direction of where this club's going to go. Any top manager who takes this club is probably looking for a payday. That's the reality, because it is still Chelsea Football Club. They can pay very well, so I'm sure there'll be a long list of people lining up for this job, but whether it's the right candidate they take or not, that's going to be probably down on them in who they pick. It's like I said, it's not rocket science. You know, I don't want to sign like a broken record and keep saying the same thing. And the reality of it is, Chelsea, Poppy, all we're trying to say is, with just a few slight changes, Chelsea can definitely be very competitive. They're only a few experienced signings away from really being competitive and where they need to be in the Premier League.
But
it's
are
this
they going to make
stubbornness.
those signings, Nige? That's the big question. Everyone's been calling for a bit more experience in this squad for over a year now.
Well, if you look at the fact of players who are currently in this team right now have come and publicly criticised the ownership group and the direction of the club, it's going to be a lot of they're going to be under the microscope now, just like any manager would have been. It's going to be on them now and what they do moving forward. Are they going to break from this blueprint of signing young and selling players on, or are they actually going to be competitive now, which is what the Chelsea fans want? Chelsea fans just want their team to be competitive. They want them to be in that top 3, top 4 race, pushing for Premier League titles, trying to win things. That is what the club is. It's not just now about qualifying for Champions League and that will be okay. And even on watching yesterday's game, Poppy, they were awful. And at one point, I said to myself, watching this game, this Chelsea team is playing like a team that wants to get their manager sacked, because they were awful in how they applied themselves, everything about them. Never seen them so poor. And again, you got to look at that dressing room now. Is there really any harmony in that dressing room with everything that's gone on with your captain and what he said, suspended and comes back and be's captain? It's a mess.
I think, Nigel, you know this too. When you're a manager at a club like this and you're managing these types of players, right, you have to have command. You have to have, when you walk into a room, everyone knows you're there. You have to have a personality. You have to have charisma. You know, you have to be a little bit more fearless, I think. It requires all these things, right, that make a good CEO, make a good manager, make a good all these things. I know he's your boy, but do you think that he had those things? Because for me, the murmurings were that he lost a lot of the players. Enzo came out, said a couple things, doesn't know if he wants to be with the club. For me, he lost a little bit the changing room also.
I mean, I can't speak because I wasn't there, Grella, but I understand what you mean. And again, it's a lot that's paid to his personality and how he speaks, spoke to the media. That's him. He's being himself. I can't go against that. That's him. It worked at Strasbourg, where you'd have to say he had a good time at Strasbourg. He was very successful. And again, this is again about the understanding element of being at Chelsea. Chelsea's a big club. You look at what they've done historically, and I agree with you. If you're going to Chelsea as a manager, it's like being a parent, Grella. I'm here to be your parent. I'm not here to be your friend. That's the kind of mentality you have to have when you go into Chelsea Football Club. I'm the parent. I'm not your friend. There's a little level of respect, but I'm the one who has authority. You listen to me. Do as I say, not as I do. And I think there is that element there that needs at Chelsea. And some of these big clubs I look at as well. You look at the Real Madrids, the Manchester United, the top 1% clubs. Those managers need that authority. Yes, there might be a little soft side to them, but not everyone has to see that soft side. You only show it to the players that you need to get them to perform. So I agree with you, and I can understand where you're coming from, because there has been a lot made about Liam on social media and the memes and stuff like that, about how he carries himself. But again, that's who he is.
It also puts the ownership group, like we've said, in immense pressure. Here's just another comment that we're going to have a look at, because this is a huge summer for them, really, isn't it? This is just as much Rosenior's fault as it is the owners and sporting directors. You reap what you sow. This is a make or break summer for their ownership of the club. Do you agree, Grella? Do you think the fans now are looking at the ownership and thinking, actually, you guys are starting to look like the problem in not being able to put somebody permanent in charge and have this structure of the club, working in tandem? For
me, it's ownership 100%. They want to do whatever they want with no direction. I mean, I think this is the conversation. And then they move on from Maresca, who I thought was doing an okay job for them. But now we're talking about two different things. That's why I started that way. But when you talk about Liam Rosenior, he's not, all due respect to him, because I think it was an impossible job, very difficult job. He's not the manager for Chelsea. Not now. Maybe in a few years, maybe at a different circumstance. Maybe he's a big manager club at a different club. He's not the guy for Chelsea. We knew that. He knew that, right? He was very close to him. I knew that. The fans knew that coming in. He was not the right guy. So yes, it is Liam Rosenior's. He has to look at himself for sure and say, what could I have done differently? This was not good enough. And then also, if you're a Chelsea fan, you get to look at the ownership and say, what are these guys doing? Because they're all over the place at the moment. And if you want to be successful like the biggest clubs in the world, you need consistency, and you need to do it over and over again for a long period of time with the same leadership group, with the same good people in charge. And if you keep having turnover, you maybe win a FIFA Club World Cup, right? I don't know what that holds in its weight, but you maybe win a couple trophies here or there, but you're never going to build something really special.
Well, here's just a look at who we could see take over. Obviously, with Chelsea, Callum McFarlane is until the end of the season, as the report suggests. But the odds for the favourite, Cesc Fabregas, is currently leading it at +250. We've seen what he's doing with Como at the minute, though. Obviously, they're flying. They're the hot team in Italy right now with this young team. Who do you think will go in? Because, Nigel, you were just saying a minute ago that this Chelsea job is no longer an attractive job, even though they've got, you know, one of the richest owners in world football.
I mean, Poppy, just look at that list there of names and managers, and you talk about experience and stuff. Do you honestly think that any of those managers would manage under this circumstances of Chelsea right now, the ownership group and how we've been? We saw in the Maresca about the medical staff kind of letting know what players can play and what players can't play, that kind of situation that you have to handle. And then now you look at players speaking out about ownership group and teams being leaked before games. The only person I could probably say who might be interested or really want to take it is Felipe Luis, the ex-Chelsea player. I think that he probably might take it under those circumstances, but I highly doubt those other names, those managers there, would manage a club like this in this kind of situation and disarray right now, unless they get full and utter control of recruitment, who comes in, who comes out, and get control to be a manager and do what a manager's supposed to do.
Frank Lampard's been another one that's been swirled in the headlines. Grella, obviously, he's had
Frank
success
ain't going
with
nowhere.
Coventry.
He just got Coventry promoted. He's got there's no way. I cannot see Frank leaving Coventry and the opportunity that was provided for him there. And there's going to be long-term security with Coventry because he got them promoted to actually have a say and do what he has to do. I know there's a love affair with Frank and Chelsea, but even Frank Lampard will not be naive to take Chelsea under these current circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, even Frank, right, when he was at Chelsea, right, it led to like, oh, is he a good manager? Is he not a good manager? And then finally he found a little consistency with Coventry and he was able to build a group. They have a distinct style of play, get them promoted the following year. They were good, obviously, the year before as well. So in football, you need good people around the project that understand money, understand football, understand players' mentality and all those things. And you need to have them together for a few years where you can have some consistency, and Chelsea doesn't have that.
I mean, it's just been a bizarre couple of years for Chelsea, hasn't it? If you think about them winning the Champions League final, obviously just after the COVID year or just before, then going through that whole spell where they brought such an influx of players, there wasn't even enough room for them all in the changing room, and now all these managerial changes as well. What a roller coaster for the Blues. Here's just another comment, by the way. Let's have another look at what you guys are saying. Chelsea need a manager that players respect. Is that easier said than done, though?
But this is a known fact. When you go into a big club, they have to. These players are making a lot of money, and they've accomplished a lot of things themselves, and they're good players, right? When they come in, they have to have respect for the manager. The second you lose the locker room, the second you lose the changing room, and in fact, how you lose the changing room, the second you lose one guy that's important in the group, you lose one guy. The one guy gets a bad smell. Hey, I don't know what he said the other night. Hey, what he did the other day at training. I don't know. You're done. You're finished. It doesn't matter if ownership is backing you. Even results might not save you at that point. The second you lose the one important guy, which then spreads throughout the changing room, you're done. So you have to be able to have command. And I think personally, Liam never had that type of command. I don't think he has that tool in his toolbox. To be quite honest, I don't know how they're friends.
Maybe for Strasbourg.
I don't know how they're friends because he's a dog. He knows what he's got some command. So, but Liam,
I mean,
I don't think he's got that tool.
Have some command from coming on a Skype wearing a T-shirt like this.
What is this T-shirt though?
Some days you feel like you're surrounded by idiots.
And what does it say? Other days.
Other days. This is what you wear in your free time, Nigel?
Yes, this is what I wear in my free time. But just to go back to the conversation, and I agree with what Grella's saying, I understand. I think when it comes to football, it's like anything. Wisdom comes with age. For some of these certain football clubs, you need a seasoned, mature manager. That's what you need. If not, you can go young if the manager's going to be in charge and shows you that he's a manager that will be respected. And I think that some of these top clubs, that's why they go for seasoned managers. With that experience, know when to put a hand around a player. And like Grella said there, for me, you can lose a dressing room in a day. It's easy as a manager and a coach to lose a whole entire dressing room in one day. That's how much of a tightrope most of these managers are walking on. But again, you need someone who's going to command that dressing room. Players are going to listen up.
Like who?
And basically
who do you like then, Nigel?
For the Chelsea job?
Yeah.
Whoever they get, Poppy, if they want to stabilise this ship, they need to get a top manager. But no top manager is going to work under those circumstances unless the money that Chelsea are offering is really good. I tell you that
Which
now.
I'm
because
sure it will
otherwise,
be, right? The money is not.
I mean, obviously, 5.5 years and you get sacked after 4 months. That's happy days, right?
yeah, but it also this depends on the circumstances that you be working under. You know, not everyone's motivated by money like Grella, the slumlord.
It's better than winning the Champions League. 5-year vacation.
Give us a name then, Nige. If you're the Chelsea ownership, who's going in the ring for you?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I think that the manager in place will probably stay right now to the end of the season. I think it will be, again, a very silly decision to put someone else in from now to the end of the season when we all know World Cup's coming. It's going to be a manager merry-go-round. Wait till the summertime to make that decision, because if you make another poor decision now and another maybe highly regarded manager becomes available in the summer, people will put the spotlight on ownership. So now you've made your bed, you've laid in it, you've sacked Liam Rosenior after you talked about the long-term project. The smart thing to do now is just let it go to the end of the season.
I think that also the second you put a good manager in charge, maybe that's Fabregas, maybe that's someone else, we don't know, right? We're speculating. The second you put a good manager in charge, if you're ownership, now all of a sudden you can start holding the players accountable for the results and for the performances and for the things they say in the media. You can start to say, hey, listen, this is what we've set up here. Now you've got to perform. You've got to perform the level of a Chelsea player. Because right now, with the weak leadership in Liam, what I thought was weak leadership in Liam Rosenior, from what I could see from the outside, players start to niggle and say things and get away with stuff that they normally, otherwise wouldn't under good management. If a manager like Fabregas would go there, at least you would know one thing. You would know that there was going to be a way to do the daily, and there's going to be a very specific way to play football. It's going to be Spanish-style football, possession-based football. This is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to perform. Liam didn't have that.
Would you go if you were?
Liam didn't have that.
If you were Cesc, would you go to Chelsea?
Well, I'm sorry?
If you were Cesc, would you take the Chelsea job if you were offered it? No, you wouldn't. Okay, go ahead, Nige.
What are you saying?
No, I'm glad you came to your senses in that one. I know Cesc is doing great at Como. Chelsea's not the right appointment for Cesc Fabregas right now. Let's pump the brakes on Cesc. Okay, he's doing well. He's still young in his managerial career, still has a way to go. When you get to a club like Chelsea, there'll be players that come through that, yes, you're the great Cesc Fabregas, and there might be some young players who'll be like, okay, you're a legend, but then they start giving you a few different words you might not like. Let's pump the brake. Let's not be in a rush. Let's gain experience.
With what I'm saying is with him, you know what you're going to get. Like when I'm talking about a guy like Liam Rosenior, I don't know what I'm going to get. I mean, you're opening up Pandora's box. When I look at Fabregas, we've followed him now for a couple of years in Serie A. When I watch him, I know exactly what his team is going to try to accomplish. And then I can rank him on that. Okay. I can say, hey, listen.
But the only thing that people push back on that, Grella, is the fact of, I understand what you're saying, but then again, Chelsea, the problem is the ownership model and what they've done, because if you look at the players that have been recruited at the football club, how much say have managers had in these players? They've got 1,001 wingers and barely any of them play. You went and got Garnacho. He barely plays and comes on as a sub right now. A lot of this Chelsea thing is completely broken if you don't have a set structure. Good
100%.
leadership always starts from the top and filters down. Just on that list again, if you want to talk about young managers who could probably handle this type of pressure, who's very sure of themselves, I'll probably say Nagelsmann will probably be the best one to go if you're a young manager. If you look at his managerial career and how long he's been managing for, that's a young manager, but that's a very firm, strong young manager who will not mince his words. That's the kind of direction that you need.
And they had success with Thomas Tuchel, right?
They did, and another great manager. But I think any manager, like the point that Nigel's saying, any manager that's worth his salt, that any manager that's that good at what he does, he's going to go in and say, this is what I need, and this way it's going to work. And will Chelsea ownership allow that? That's the question that we don't know.
Just very quickly, Nigel, you've been a captain now till the end of the season. If you are in the Chelsea dressing room, I mean, what is it like in there if you had to imagine? They're obviously, they're going to push for the Champions League. They've fallen out of it. It looks like it's going to be a big ask. But is it almost like free fall now till the end of the season?
It's a lack of accountability. I'm sorry, but how you say about being a captain, your captain, one of the people who made a comment, and people have tried to defend him many different ways. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew the seed he was planting. If that's your captain and you're sitting in that dressing room right now, I know how I am personality-wise. If that's supposed to be the leader that I follow, and I knew he planted the seed how he wants to plant the seed because he wants to be part of this project, it's going to be a mess. No matter how much they try and portray that we're together, we're united, it's going to be an absolute mess for me right now. Got to try and see out the season.